Over the last 10 years, a quiet alliance of automakers, software firms, and federal regulators basically rewrote the definition of vehicle ownership without ever asking for your permission. New cars are breaking down faster than ever. They want you to pay a monthly subscription just to use your own heated seats. AI is taking over the wheel, and the government is mandating a kill switch. At this point, I think buying a new vehicle after 2026 is probably going to be a really bad idea. So in this video, I'm going to show you 3 disturbing trends that are effectively killing the idea of car ownership for good. So let's break down what's changing, why it matters, and what it can mean for that car sitting in your driveway, because you might end up just keeping that one forever. Today I'm exposing the dark truth about the future of cars, and it's not looking good. We have to start with BMW, because they made one of the boldest moves in the industry, and despite all of the backlash, they never really walked it back. At least, not at first. In 2022, BM rolled out a subscription model in several countries that charged most drivers about $18 a month.
BMW now gives you the honor to pay them $18 a month to use your heated seats.
Just to use the heated seats that were already installed in the car.
Imagine this. You spend all of this money on a brand new BMW 7 Series. You're driving home one frigid LA evening and you're cold, so you reach for the bun warmers, yet nothing happens when you push the buttons because somehow you forgot to pay the monthly subscription for heated seats.
This wasn't for like a streaming service or some cloud-based enhanced navigation or any kind of stuff like that, but for physical heating coils that were already installed in the seats in the car that you purchased. The wiring was there and all of the hardware was just sitting there in the seat, right under the driver and the passenger. Yet BMW wrote code specifically to disable those parts until the owner agreed to press that button for the monthly fee. While they eventually scrapped that plan after everyone on the internet collectively lost their mind over it, the underlying strategy with that subscription model pretty much stayed exactly the same. These companies now view recurring fees for hardware they already sold you as a foundational part of their future business model. Now, some manufacturers like General Motors take a slightly quieter approach to this that actually impacts a lot more people through their OnStar service. Basic features like locking your doors from an app or checking your fuel level used to be part of the deal when you bought the truck. But now those functions are locked behind tiers that cost between $15 and $25 every single month. Even though the truck hasn't changed, GM decided that the ongoing revenue from a subscription model in your vehicle is more valuable than the profit they made from the initial sale. Even Ford is playing the same game with their Blue Cruise hands-free driving system on the F-150 and the Mustang Mach-E. When you drive one off the lot, you might get a 90-day trial, but once those 3 months are up, you have to shell out $75 every quarter just to keep using it. So you've already bought the cameras, the radar sensor, and the processing power required for the car to just basically almost drive itself. Yet you can't actually use any of that unless you stay on a payment plan that Ford controls. And not that this should come to you as a shock anymore, but Tesla is arguably the leader in this space with their full self-driving package, which currently costs either $90 a month or $15,000 up front. The truly frustrating part is that Tesla can push an over-the-air update, like in the middle of the night, that completely changes how any of these features work. People who drop $15,000 on self-driving software have seen their car's capabilities shift and change overnight, proving that they didn't really buy a permanent product, but rather a temporary license for a number on a screen. Even Stellantis is running the exact same playbook on their Uconnect system on everything from Jeep Wranglers to Ram trucks. Features like remote start and Wi-Fi access now require an active subscription even though the hardware was installed at the factory, and the capability already exists in the machine sitting in your driveway. That shift is entirely intentional, especially since McKinsey projected that these in-car subscriptions could bring in $250 billion in annual revenue by the end of 2030. If you listen to any of these automakers' earnings call lately, you'll notice that they call you a user instead of a customer. Because a customer buys a product once, while a user is someone that they can monetize forever. Subscriptions are a massive headache, but you can technically live without heated seats or self-driving tech. The real problem starts when your car actually breaks down and you realize you're not even allowed to fix it yourself anymore. Your new car runs on more than 100 million lines of code, yet almost none of that code belongs to you. You aren't allowed to touch it, read it, or work around it. The clearest example where this leads is actually not even from the automotive industry, because it actually came from the world of farming. And this is where the auto industry is headed if we're not careful. John Deere spent years locking farmers out of their own tractors using proprietary software that made simple repairs impossible. A farmer in Iowa couldn't even fix a basic sensor failure during the middle of harvest season without calling a dealer, waiting for an authorized technician, and paying whatever high rate the dealer decided to charge. Even though the machine physically was on their land and considered their property since they purchased it, it remained functionally under the control of the manufacturer, John Deere. It took years of organized pressure from farm groups before Deere finally signed a right to repair memorandum of understanding with the American Farm Bureau in 2023. But even that agreement lacks real teeth. Farmers are still reporting the same lockout issues that started this whole problem 5 years ago. That situation with John Deere serves as the roadmap for your next car, and companies like Ford, GM, and Stellantis are already moving down that path. Their proprietary diagnostic systems require dealer-only software to handle basic functions like resetting control modules, programming replacement keys, or calibrating sensors after a simple repair. An independent shop with a solid reputation and an average 20 years of experience cannot access those systems without manufacturer authorization, which means the dealer then becomes your only option when a transmission module needs a quick recalibration. The dealer knows that they have a monopoly on that repair, and they price their services accordingly, which is usually very high. The rise of ADAS systems makes this problem even worse for the average owner. Features like lane keep assist, automatic emergency braking, and adaptive cruise control all require precise physical calibration after anything touches the front of the vehicle. Whether it's a minor fender bender, a bumper replacement, or sometimes even something as simple as a new windshield getting installed, the car needs to be recalibrated. And a lot of this equipment required costs between $10,000, $50,000, or even more, depending on the manufacturer. And most independent shops, especially the smaller mom and pop shops, just can't absorb that cost. They end up turning the job away or sending it straight to the dealer. And either way, the manufacturer wins while you pay more. Now, some manufacturers are even looking at restricting access to the OBD port, which is that little connection under your dashboard that every mechanic, plugs that little reader into to tell you why you've got a check engine light. In that scanner, you can go to like AutoZone or O'Reilly's and it costs you maybe $30. But at a dealership, it's going to cost you way more. The OBD2 standard has been required on every vehicle sold in the United States since 1996, and open access to that port is basically the last thing standing between independent shops and a complete diagnostic lockout. If manufacturers succeed in moving to this gated system where third-party scanners need specific permissions to pull codes, then independent repair will become nearly impossible on modern vehicles, especially independent repair at your own house. The automotive industry has spent some serious money making sure legislation doesn't fix this power imbalance. In fact, they want that imbalance to get even bigger. When the Repair Act was reintroduced in Congress in 2023 to guarantee car owners and independent shops access to the same information dealers get, automakers and their lobbying groups spent over $25 million fighting it. The bill stalled out and is still sitting there today, while independent repair shops currently handle around 70% of all post-warranty vehicle repairs in the US. This competitive market is the only thing that keeps dealer labor rates from going completely unchecked. If you lock independent shops out of the diagnostic and calibration systems that they need, that 70% market share will virtually evaporate overnight. Every out-of-warranty repair will flow back through the dealer network at dealer prices on dealer timelines with zero competitive pressure to keep the process honest, which means dealers will no doubt raise prices across the board to benefit themselves. The subscription model sells you access to something that you think you already own, but the repair lockout sells you a permanent dependency on a service network that you can't escape. Both of these shifts are decisions made in corporate boardrooms to maximize long-term revenue. And the next part of this gets even worse. This involves the federal government deciding that your car needs to be able to stop itself. And this is where we have to look at who actually gets to decide when that happens. Most people never took the time to read the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act because it's a 2,700-page bill. But the part that matters is buried deep in Section 24220. This section contains a mandate requiring all new vehicles sold in the United States after 2026 to include a passive drunk and impaired driver prevention system. That language sounds reasonable to most people, until you dig deeper and realize what it actually describes, which is a system that monitors the person behind the wheel in real time and can disable the vehicle if it decides something is wrong. This isn't a breathalyzer that you blow into before the engine starts, but a passive system that runs without any action from you every single time you drive. The NHTSA is still in process of writing a technical standard for what qualifies as an acceptable system, but the leading technologies involve driver-facing cameras that watch your eyes and face. Other options include steering input sensors that track your response patterns and biometric monitoring systems that can read your psychological signals. These systems are always recording and always analyzing your behavior. And if the computer decides that your inputs look off in any way, whatever that means, it doesn't ask for your opinion before it acts. Now, before you call this a conspiracy, you have to understand that the underlying infrastructure for remote vehicle control already exists in tens of millions of cars on American roads right now.
But there is a law that states that every vehicle manufactured is going to have a kill switch in it. The car itself will monitor your driving. And if the car thinks that you're not doing a good job driving, it will disable itself. So the car dashboard becomes your judge, your jury, and your executioner.
The OnStar system from GM has a documented remote disabled capability that law enforcement has used to slow down stolen vehicles during high-speed pursuits. The car receives a signal from a remote operator, the throttle response drops away, and the vehicle simply coasts to a stop. GM built that technology and marketed it as a helpful theft recovery tool, and it works exactly as intended. The question of whether a car can be disabled remotely from outside of a vehicle is already settled. So the only question left is who controls that capability, and what happens when that sensor system makes a mistake. Even data recorders are already answering a part of that question, and the reality is not very reassuring if you're a privacy advocate. EDRs are required in virtually every vehicle made after 2014 to record speed, throttle position, brake application, and steering input in the seconds surrounding a crash. In most states, law enforcement can access that data without even having a warrant, which means your car is already keeping records that can be used against you in the court of law. You never specifically agreed to this data collection because the technology was just in there when you bought your vehicle. But the argument that nobody in the government wants to have is the follow-up. Once you built a system that can monitor driver behavior and disable a vehicle based on what it detects, you have built something that can be repurposed for other things. The same camera that's watching for impairment can watch for anything the programmer wants it to see. The same kill switch that stops the drunk driver can receive other instructions from outside sources, and the same EDR storing crash data can store much more if the standard gets expanded. None of this is speculation about a distant future dystopia, but rather a description of the logical extension of systems being mandated right now. These tools are built on infrastructure that already exists and managed by agencies whose technical standards are still being written behind closed doors. So what's the move here? What can you actually do about all this government overreach, subscription models, and regulation trying to control your vehicle remotely? I mean, what can you do? The most direct answer is to buy older vehicles because trucks from the mid-2000s to the early 2010s hit a sweet spot that's getting harder to find as prices climb and supply shrinks. These vehicles are mechanically mature with parts available everywhere, and since independent shops can work on them without proprietary authorization, you aren't locked into a dealership's ecosystem. None of these came from the factory with a camera pointed at your face, which is why a pre-2015 Toyota Tacoma, a 2012 Ford F-150 with the 5-liter Coyote, or a pre-2014 GM truck running an Ellis engine still feels like something you actually own. You can diagnose these with a $30 scanner from Amazon and take them to any shop in town. But that window is shrinking fast, and the value on clean examples of those trucks will reflect it because people have finally figured this out. The longer you wait, the more you're going to have to pay for a vehicle that actually belongs to you. And on the legislative side, right to repair is moving at the state level faster than it ever has federally. And over 40 states have introduced some form of this legislation over recent years. State bills don't have to survive the same massive lobbying budgets that killed the Repair Act in Washington, which means constituent pressure at the state level is a real lever that you can actually pull. So one thing you can do is call your state representative or show up to a town hall meeting. And as far as this new federal mandate for monitoring drivers with cameras inside the car, the NHTSA is still writing the technical rules, and public comment periods on federal rulemaking are legally required. The rules are still being decided on what can actually trigger a vehicle and make it not work or make it not turn on or start at all. So public comment is really more important than ever. And as far as repairing your own vehicle, you might as well pick up a $30 OBD2 scanner, because being able to read your own codes and diagnose your own car and fix it yourself is going to save you a ton of money in the long run. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The car industry is no longer selling machines. They're selling controlled access. BMW, Tesla, Ford, and General Motors aren't just building vehicles anymore. They're building platforms, machines tied to software, subscriptions, permissions, and remote oversight. And once a product becomes a platform, ownership completely starts to disappear. And that's the shift that most people haven't really noticed yet. You bought it, you drove it, you fixed it, you modified it, and if you wanted to keep it running for 30 years, nobody could stop you. And the simple idea that your property was yours to control. Now that idea is being chipped away one update at a time. A feature can be disabled overnight, a repair can be blocked by software, a sensor can decide that your driving inputs don't look right for whatever reason, and every single one of those changes gets sold as convenience, safety, or progress. The real issue isn't whether every new system is malicious. It's what happens when the infrastructure exists and the rules change later. History shows that once a system is built, it rarely stays limited to its original purpose. That's why this whole conversation matters now. Not 10 years from now where every driveway is filled with a software-defined vehicle, but right now where we still have a choice. Because once older cars and trucks disappear from our roads, once independent repair shops lose access, and once every new vehicle depends on a manufacturer's server to unlock its full functionality, going back will be almost impossible. At that point, the industry won't need to convince anyone. The old alternative, the do-it-yourself fixing your vehicle, will simply be gone. So before you buy your next vehicle, ask this one simple question. Are you buying a machine, or are you just renting permission to use one? That answer may determine whether the last vehicle that you truly own is already sitting in your driveway.